Hey guys, welcome back. So for this one, we're jumping back into the Carnage series, where now the Carnage Symbiote has reached the point where it wants to forge its own version of All Black, the Necro Sword. And it's pretty wild the way that this happens, so let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. So in our last talk, we jumped from the Carnage Symbiote over to Cletus Cassidy to see what he was doing, as well as talk about some of the differences in opinion which have been going on between Cletus Cassidy and Carnage. But this time around, as we return back to the Symbiote and his god-killing conquest, we find that his next destination is Nidavellir, which is a place that has definitely seen better days, because prior to Carnage coming here, Eitri's dwarves at the Forge were nearly cleaned out, as the result of a story that we covered not too long ago in Thor God of Hammers, back when Odin's enchantments were being undone one by one, when the god Tempest made her way back here after being freed from Mjolnir and sought revenge on the dwarves who trapped her in that hammer. But fast forward to now with the Carnage Symbiote making his way here, we see him cleaning out what looks to be every last dwarf that was left over. However, there is one that he spared, who the dwarves had imprisoned, and this is the guy Carnage made his way here to find, to forge his new weapon, because this is Drorin, the brother of Eitri, king of the dwarves of Nidavellir, who was locked away because he believed that the forge needed to be destroyed, because time and time again, the weapons that the dwarves would forge, which were immense in power, would only carelessly be used by the gods in their meaningless conflicts, which would never end. And Drorin wasn't surprised that eventually it would be one of their weapons that would come back, destroy the forge, and end Eitri's life. But also with Drorin being the more talented craftsman between himself and his brother Eitri, this has caused him to be heavily sought after, and not just by Carnage but Hela as well. And with him refusing to help Carnage, the symbiote admires this bold stance, because he's got a soft spot for people who are willing to die for something. But Carnage goes on to let him know that he's not like these other gods who have come through here, looking for another weapon so they can run along with their same squabbles and petty conflicts, but instead Carnage wants a weapon that'll kill those gods, and when they're gone, kill some more. A blade with its singular purpose being Carnage. So Drorin agrees, and not necessarily for the reason of getting back at the gods who have long wasted the dwarves' talent, but instead for other reasons that he doesn't share initially. He just says that he needs materials and he needs an assistant. So given the situation with the forge being short-staffed, no pun intended, this creates a scenario where Drorin gets to have a bit of alone time with Kenneth Neely, and as he prepares to forge, he tells Neely that he's not sure what his companion means to him, but this guy's gotta be stopped. And he more or less lets Neely know that the two of them have got to stop this maniac, because if Carnage gets what he wants, he's gonna kill everyone anyway. And at first, Neely's telling the dwarf like, hey, you haven't seen what he can do, and even though Neely has, he's not even sure if killing Carnage is possible. But for Drorin, just hearing that Neely is not opposed to the idea, that's enough for him. And as Neely goes on to express how he's noticed that Carnage has changed so much from someone he once admired to this thing that now wants to eradicate worlds, Drorin stops him right there, and he tells Neely that he underestimates the forge, because it's capable of creating weapons and tools, capable of destroying and building whole realities in a moment. And when the time comes to fashion this blade, it's likely that Carnage will want it melded to his body, much like the rest of his weapons. And when that happens, they will have an opportunity, a moment of weakness, where they can use the forge to turn Carnage into dust. And then next, he shows Neely a device that he had crafted while he was imprisoned all these years, which is capable of allowing him to travel to another world. Then he lets him know that all he has to do to use it is tap into the energy of the forge. But now with Carnage showing up, Drorin's worst fears come true, and this forge that he believes should have been destroyed long ago, it's about to birth a weapon so terrible that it's not gonna matter how far they run. And Drorin doesn't want to leave with that being his last act. But now with the preparations nearly done, Drorin tells Carnage that he kinda needs to know what he's building. So Carnage tells him that he wants a sword, and Drorin tells him yeah, he can make him a sword, but usually people who come here, they want something a little more specific. So Carnage hands him the Venom Codex, which he had taken from Malekith, while telling him within this codex, there is a design template for a blade, the greatest blade of them all black, the Necro Sword, the Butcher's Blade, which possesses power beyond knowing, But for Carnage, he's like, black is such an unimaginative color for a weapon of such exquisite taste. So he tells Drorin that he would like to make a few modifications. But for Drorin, when he sees the layout of this new weapon, though it seems challenging and thrilling, he soon realizes that he's gotta pull himself back because this weapon is too dangerous to be made. And as much as it would be a thrill to a master craftsman to forge something this incredible, Drorin knows that the dude that asked for this has gotta go. So moments later, when the time comes to forge this blade, he's prepared to do what must be done. So as the moment approaches, he asks Neely if he's ready, almost as if he's asking him if he's ready to forge the blade, when really he's asking him if he's ready to kill Carnage, which really Neely isn't, but the dwarf tells him that it's a simple plan, as long as Neely does his part, to where next he goes on to explain to Neely the forging process. And he tells him when a weapon is to be formed, before it is tempered, it's heated, for the most part in the forge. But this blade will be forged in a different sort of fire, as 1,000,000 fallen stars blaze in the sky each night. 100 pass just close enough to be pulled into the aperture above the forge, which uses Nidavelir's pull to draw the stars into itself. And only a few are needed. Too many would have enough heat to melt the heart of a planet. And there's only one substance in existence that could absorb that kind of energy: Uru metal. And this forge used to have hundreds of dwarves working on the metal all at once, but there's been no Uru here for a long time. So from here, Drorin tells Neely when the time's right, he'll draw that aperture all the way, and he'll see what it looks like when the heat of 100 falling stars burns the life out of their friend. And at that point, they'll use Drorin's device to get out of there. And with the plan laid out, Neely is still like, yeah, but what if it doesn't work? And Drorin's just like, it's gonna work. But Neely's still like, what if it doesn't? And Drorin just tells him, hey, if it doesn't work, then it won't matter where we run to. But also, during this time, we find that Detective Shade has made use of the Yort Spring by way of some methods that he's really not proud of, with him having to kill a giant to get the key, and now Cletus, the piece of the Carnage Symbiote that he's been bonded to, fills him in on where Carnage went next. So John uses the key to take the two of them to Nidavellir. But as they arrive and begin to make their way closer to the forge, Cletus tells Detective Shade that he's proud of him. Like, yeah, Shade could have gone home, but no, he chose to continue his pursuit. And it goes on to tell Shade that he's looked past the veil. He knows what's out there now. He's seen symbiotes, space, spiderlings, elves, and giants, and John is colored so far out the lines that he'll never want to go back to the little box again. And for John, he's struggling, telling Cletus that he's wrong, almost as if John wants to agree a little bit. Meanwhile, back inside the forge, Carnage is ready to get this thing going, cause he's hot. But soon after, the stars begin to pass over, so they open the aperture, pulling them in just like the dwarf had planned, right on top of Carnage's head. And it just has Carnage looking like he hopped in the shower without checking the water temperature. But with doing this, the dwarf's plan is successful. But before he leaves, he tells Carnage that he should have let him rot in that prison. And he goes on to ask Carnage, like, why would he believe that he'd forged this weapon after denying numerous gods? Why would he just say yes to making something this crazy? But finally he tells Carnage that he can squirm, he can lash and whip all he wants, but there's nothing in all existence except Uru metal that can absorb the amount of energy coursing through Carnage right now. And there hasn't been any Uru metal in this forge, not since the dwarves who worked it perished. And he tells Carnage, this is it. This is how you die. Even if a mote of you continue to exist after a few moments, it would be a miracle. And then he looks to his left and he sees Detective John Shade. And this guy's looking rough. But right away Shade asks, where's Carnage? And Neely tells him, it's over. You can stop now. We killed Carnage. And right there, Shade starts to freak out and slowly approach Carnage, reaching his hand out, while at the same time it's like he knows that he shouldn't, but he still does. And as soon as they make contact, Carnage breaks out. And I'm gonna tell you right now, this right here looks like a great time to use that little Rubik's Cube and get up out of there. Because now with Carnage free, Drorin had told him everything he needed to know. So next, Carnage reaches out to all the dead dwarves around the forge, and he pulls the Uru from their corpses, in their dead lungs, under their nails, buried in their skin. Carnage extracts every drop that he can, with it allowing him to absorb the energy that was eating away at him, using the Uru to restore and reforge himself stronger than he was before. And with him naming the new weapon All Blood, he quickly impales Drorin while telling him that he made a promise to Hela that he would send him to her in one piece. And then next, Carnage makes his way to Detective Shade, who's now dying since he doesn't have that piece of Carnage to hold him together. But because Shade saved Carnage's life, Carnage tells him in return he chooses Shade to be his new host. And from here, this takes the attention of Carnage over to Neely, who at this point, Carnage is looking at him like a traitor. So Neely quickly scrambles for Drowan's device, and he uses it to take him to the one person who might know how to stop Carnage, who of course is none other than the original psychopath, Cletus Cassidy. Back on Earth, at the orphanage, where Neely makes his way in to meet the other side of this chaotic coin. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/Dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.